Hello again, friends. Episode 2, Marvel What If, Season 2, Episode 2. I gotta be real with you, this was probably my favorite episode thus far. And I'm saying this also having just watched Episode 3, which that review will be coming to you tomorrow, so make sure you come back for that. But wow, I really loved this episode. Like, I really, really loved it.
What if? Break it down for me.
It might end up being my favorite episode of the entire season. I'm gonna put some money on that right now. I don't know if it'll be true. I would only owe the money to myself, but I said it. I really loved it. I just loved the team, especially that it's centered around. I thought it was so cool to see, like, basically what would the Avengers be like if they assembled in the 80s. And of course, to go along with that, the question for this episode is, what if Peter Quill attacked the Earth's mightiest heroes? And of course, we're getting Peter when he's just a kid here, but he's still insanely powerful because he's Ego's kid. And I also love, he just has a moment in this where basically he tells, it's very, very similar to sort of Peter's response even as an adult, which kind of just tells us how much of Peter is still a kid. Gosh, that's beautiful. I'm just realizing that, and it's so true because Peter doesn't really fully grow up, I would say, until the end of the Guardians story, till volume 3, where he kind of realizes like he's just been running his whole life from all of his problems and he needs to confront them and finally like grow up. So that feels really fitting. Wow, that's powerful. But yeah, he basically tells his dad, like, you did this to my mom, this isn't cool, you suck, I'm gonna fight you. And he also decides to basically take one of the seeds from Ego's planet within himself, and in doing that, he can use it to basically defeat Ego, because now he has a piece of Ego within himself always, so he'll always have that power, which is also a really cool concept. And I don't know what that means for like the future for Peter, but probably some really cool stuff, because I think he also ends up kind of joining the team at the end, which is cool. So let's talk about this, Earth's mightiest heroes in this world. So we have Marvel, love. We have Hank Pym's Ant-Man. We have Goliath, which Hank Pym and Goliath, just, that is a whole dynamic that's really fun to watch them on a team together. Winter Soldier, T'Chaka's Black Panther, Thor, and Agent Carter, who's kind of like the Maria Hill of this universe a bit to me, and Howard Stark, who's kind of like the Nick Fury of this universe to me. Although you could argue that like Peggy and Howard are kind of like both of those things, like kind of just more like a team running the Avengers, but Peggy's also more, I would say, in the field with them, in my opinion. I love that there's so many characters, so many actors and actresses that came back to do the voices. Like, really, a lot of them came back for this, and obviously I love Haley Atwell, so anytime she comes back, and I love Peggy, so anytime she comes back to be Peggy, I'm just like, I'm so here for this. I really love her. She's just so great, and she's so talented, and she's so perfect as Peggy Carter, to be honest. I love the dynamic here, too, that we get to see between young Peter and young Hope. I never really thought about it, but it's so true. Like, they really are two characters who have a lot of parallels. So they're both kids of superpowered beings, you know? And especially with Peter realizing this at a younger age, they have that commonality now. They both have issues with their dads, who are superpowered beings. And they also both lost their moms when they were young. Wow, I never realized how similar they are, but it totally makes sense to me that if they were to meet when they were kids and get to know each other, and Peter knew this about his dad, that they would bond and instinctively kind of come together and want to help each other. I thought that was super cute. It made so much sense. And it's pretty crazy to think there could be a world out there where I could see Hope and Peter like becoming an item and like having a romantic connection to each other as well. Like, I could see them growing up and getting together in this universe. It's weird, but it makes so much sense. Honestly, this felt like a complete mini movie, which is why I liked it. Like, I like the whole premise of it. I like how it's all about this idea of family, whether that's, you know, family that you're born into or found family, and like what family really means, and how it's kind of something that you are the person ultimately who gets to choose as well, with Peter even deciding like his dad doesn't really get to be his dad. Like, his dad hasn't been there and his home is Earth. It's this great sense of like what is family and what is home. And even like with Bucky, who is Winter Soldier, obviously, and when he comes back and how Howard basically uses their connection to Steve to get through to him so that he can free him, because in a way, Howard and Peggy and Bucky are all kind of like each other's family too. So it's just really cool. It's a really cool thematic episode that feels very strong in terms of the plot and in terms of the themes that we see here. I would love to see something like this actually done in live action. I think it would have been really cool. I mean, I don't expect it to ever happen. But if we saw this world in live action, or if we got to see some of these characters in live action, I think that would be really, really fun. See this team in live action, or a version of it. Yeah, it's just a really cool concept. And I also obviously love the time period. Like I love that, like the 80s and the 90s, that whole period of time is just cool to me. It's cool to imagine what it would be like if we had the Avengers at that time. I also wonder if we might see more of this world, because it's interesting that this team kind of forms because of Peter arriving to the planet and them thinking that he's like this big threat and then finding out that it's Ego. Because although they defeat Ego in the episode, as Thor says at the end, you know, he still needs to fight Ego and make him pay for everything that he's done to like Asgard and the Nine Realms. And so he wants to take the fight directly to Ego as a planet, because he acknowledges that, like, look, Ego's still out in space, and like even though we defeated him here, that doesn't mean that he's like gone. We just defeated his physical form here, but he's still out there, because that, as long as the planet's still around, he's still around. So I really would love to see the Avengers fight Ego and what that fight looks like versus the Guardians fighting Ego, how that changes, what the similarities are. And I really do hope that we get to revisit this universe, revisit this world, and see this team again. It's just a really cool concept. And I also love how like Peter seems to like join the team in the end as well after defeating his dad. It's just a fun ride. It's a fun one, this episode. I'm gonna bet that it will be my favorite episode, but you never know. It is early in the season. This is only episode 2. Let me know down in the comments which episode has been your favorite so far. I have watched episode 3, so if you want to talk about episode 3, you can, but maybe avoid like any major spoilers, just for people that might have not watched it yet that are watching this review. And are you watching these day by day, or are you kind of waiting to binge them? I want to know where people are at in terms of, you know, their watching style for this, because it is really interesting that this isn't a all at once release. This isn't a weekly release. This is a daily release, which is very different. Like, we haven't really seen a show released this way on Disney Plus. So I'm curious to think what you think about that and how you feel about it. I mean, I think the other thing that's interesting with this episode is us getting this 80s team. It kind of just makes me think, like, what other teams could we see? I mean, I know there's, back in the comics, there's like a 50s team, so like obviously that would be cool. And you know, we've kind of seen that a little bit with Captain Carter, and you know, what would happen if basically Peggy ended up becoming a super soldier instead of Steve, and how that kind of changes the narrative. But I wonder if like we could go into the future and maybe see, like, you know, what would the Avengers be like in the future, or what if, you know, the Avengers formed when they were kids. Like, I always love the baby stories. I just think they're so fun. I love Scotty Young. I love the art. I love when Scotty Young writes stuff. So I'd love to see something that's also kind of in that vein, as ridiculous as it is. Or perhaps, you know, an alien version of the Avengers. I'd love to see Avengers that are like on another world. Like, what if the Avengers came together, but it wasn't on Earth? It was like the Avengers on, you know, Hala, or the Avengers on Xandar, or like, I don't know, Skrull Avengers. What would that be like? Or what if we were in a world where there were no Avengers? What is that world like? I mean, there's a lot of different times we could go. We could do prehistoric Avengers. That's also something from the comics. Stone Age Avengers. That would be cool. So yeah, what are some time periods that you would love to see the Avengers in? Oh, you know what also would be cool? 1602. I'd love to see some 1602 stuff. I think we might be getting some 1602 stuff this season, right? Yeah, what if the Avengers assembled in 1602? So that's going to be one that we're also getting. That'll be the 8th episode, so I'm very curious to see what that team is like. I just love this idea of like alternate Avengers teams in general. I think it's super cool. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, friends, I'll see you for the next episode. But until then, Also, be warned, it might not be here because I have some traveling to do for the holidays, so I might be in a different place at that time because I have a lot of meals to eat. But I digress. Until next time, stay nerdy. Bye!